Page 124. Vela Toldot Yitzchak ben Avram, Avram Holides Yitzchak. These are the offspring of Yitzchak, the son of Avram. Avram Holides Yitzchak. So page 124, top line. So obviously the first question that anyone would ask here is, well, these are the generations of Yitzchak ben Avram, and Rashi points out that we're about to talk about the offspring of Yitzchak, which are Yaakov and Esau, who are going to be the main theme of the story over here. But then the Torah goes, and the Torah says, Avram Holides Yitzchak, Avram bore Yitzchak. Now, anybody who's been following the story since about the last three parshas knows that Avram gave birth to Yitzchak, so it would seem redundant. Why would the Torah have to go and repeat that Avram gave birth to Yitzchak? So Rashi here says, well, the Torah wants to emphasize for us that if you take a look, it's in the first column of Rashi, the right column, the third line of Rashi. Right column, third line, last two words on the line. If you find it, please show the person next to you. Right column of Rashi, three lines in, last two words on the line. So he says, Lefisha hayu leitzonei hador omrim, the leitzonim means the scoffers of the generation, were saying, Me Avimelech nis abra Sarah. Sarah must have gotten pregnant from Avimelech, because here she was living with Avram Avinu all these years and never got pregnant. And then she's taken by Avimelech, and next thing you know, she's pregnant, and well, the Torah says he didn't touch her. So they said, Shehari kama shonim shoaslaim Avram v'lo nisabra menu. Look, she was with Avram so many years, never got pregnant. So ma asa HaKadosh Baruch Hu, what did HaKadosh Baruch Hu do? Tsar klaster panav she Yitzchak dome la'Avram. HaKadosh Baruch Hu formed the face of Yitzchak that he should look his facial features should look like Avram. V'heidu akol, then everybody conceded Avram holides Yitzchak, that Avram was really the father of Yitzchak. V'zeh shekasuv kan, that's why it says Yitzchak ben Avram haya sharei edus yesh Avram holides Yitzchak. So that's why Rashi says Avram bore Yitzchak. Now these scoffers, there's a midah in personal development. There's something called leitzonos. A leitz is not somebody who makes jokes. Contrary to popular, a leitz is somebody who's a scoffer, a cynic. And a leitz has an attitude that undermines anything serious. A person could be humorous without undermining serious. He knows when to use the humor, when not. A leitz is somebody who throws a wrench into the spokes, because what he does is, you try to be serious, and we're talking about not just being serious in the conversation, we're talking about a serious approach to life. And by the leitz, everything is a joke. Everything. It doesn't mean anything. You go to shul and he'll joke about shul. You don't make a joke about the same. He's got no restraint. Underlying it is there's obviously an attitude that this person has absorbed, that he has, which is a very dangerous attitude to Yiddishkeit. The Gemara says there are four groups of people who do not greet the divine presence in the world to come. There's a group of people who sits around speaking Lashon Hara, and there's a group called liars. One of the categories of people who does not greet the divine presence is called kas leitzim, scoffers. Scoffers, you're a scoffer. A scoffer prevents you from taking life seriously. So this just shows you how far it could go, because there's one opinion over here that they said, well, Avimelech was the real father. If you look in the original source in the Medrash says they were saying, well, she got pregnant either from Avimelech or from Paro. Now, the incident with Paro, when she was taken by Paro, took place 25 years earlier. So that would be quite a long pregnancy. If she was pregnant for 25 years, first of all, you got to feel bad for her husband. You got to be with a pregnant wife for 25 years. That's bad. 9 months is bad enough. And then you got to tolerate her 25 years. So nobody in history, Guinness Book, doesn't have any woman who is pregnant. At some point, the baby comes out. 25 years, they say, well, she must have gotten pregnant from Paro. Yeah, but that was 25. Don't confuse me with the facts, and don't confuse me. She must have gotten, it couldn't be Avram Avinu. The whole thing doesn't seem to make sense. That just shows you how far leitzonos could extend. It could extend where you could undermine anything serious with absolute utter nonsense, first of all. Second of all, it's more fundamental. What is there? What do you care? Everybody was saying she must have gotten pregnant. What do you mind if the older couple had a baby and it was a miraculous baby? What do you care? Why do you have such a vested interest over here that you have to try to go and cast aspersions on what the Torah is telling you? Well, no, it couldn't have been from. What do you care? There's got to be something a little deeper over it. They're not just picking on them. They were nice people, Avram and Sarah. Why go pick on them? The answer is that what they're really bothered by, they're not bothered by Avram having a Yitzchak on a personal level. What they're really bothered by is the threat that this would pose to them as a complete worldview. Because if Avram has Yitzchak, that means we now have some sort of generational chain of Judaism. They are not threatened by the individual Avram who has Yitzchak. They're threatened by the concept, what we call a Masorah. A Masorah means that we have a chain of tradition dating all the way back. So I think you are mostly Litvaks, if I'm not mistaken, right? And it goes all the way back. The Panovitcher Ravs used to come to South Africa, didn't he? He used to come to South Africa all the road. That was his community. The Litvaks and the South Africans have two things. They got Litvaks, they got really good meat. Right? They got really lean meat in South Africa. Their rugby team is, I guess you guys won the last, are you the reigning champions? When I was there, they lost to, they got slaughtered by New Zealand.
No need to bring conflict.
Never been to South Africa.
The word
Slaughter. I was there, gentlemen. I saw it on the delayed telecast on Motzei Shabbos when all the guys were in the room. I could even tell you who was on New Zealand's team. Remember Carlos, what's his name? Carlos Spencer, that name, bad memories for you. Yes, I remember that because I was the only American in the room. The South Africans were all sitting there. And I was having the braai on Motzei Shabbos. You know, they were all watching this game. The South Africans were getting massacred. And the only word I heard in the room was they just kept saying, "This is shocking. This is shocking," right? That was what that was how they described. And then I think 4 years, what's that?
I think that's because you were there.
That's because I was there. Yeah, they were. Then 4 years later they won, right? So you have a chain. You have a chain of tradition. You are Litvaks. You know, everybody has the Sfardim, our Sfardim. We all have a chain of tradition. The chain of tradition takes us all the way back to Sinai, and the chain of tradition that takes us back to Sinai is actually a chain of tradition that gives us some sort of legitimacy as the Jewish people, the chosen people, but that chain goes all the way back to Avraham Avinu. So if there are people who are objecting to the chain of tradition, to the father-son chain, we have a vested interest over here. What's with this nonsense about the chosen people and you have a chain all the way down? Therefore, underlying this Leitzanis is really an attack on the entire chain that we have that links us all the way back. You know, when you get married, you give your wife a ring. Now, according to halacha, you could give her anything that's worth a pruta. Under the chuppah, if you want, and you're not too smart, you could take out a pen and you could say to her, "Hariat mekudeshesli," right? That works. That works. Again, I'm not recommending, I'm only saying that you could give her a pen. Why has the tradition become to give a woman a ring? So, you know, they got all these emotional, what do you call it, romantic ideas of we're a complete circle, and you know, and what do you call it? We're united as one. You know, they have all these books that show. Marriage books that show two doves on the cover, you know, holding a ring in their mouths, which it really should be two vultures holding an axe. You know, that's what it should really be. But that's their idea. Why do you give a ring? A ring symbolizes that idea of completion. The ring also symbolizes if you're walking around with a woman who has a ring on her finger. You know, if you're walking around with a woman, who is she? I mean, who is this woman? So the ring is an indication that you're walking in public with a woman who happens to be your wife, and she got the ring as an indication. But it's a deeper idea. The ring represents a link in a chain. That means every time a couple gets married, they're forming another link in a chain of the Jewish people that goes all the way back to Sinai. That's what the symbolism of the ring is. And therefore, Avram gives Yitzchak is the son of Avram. That's the first link in the chain. Yitzchak is the first naturally born Jew in history, and that's what they're objecting to. That's the first idea. Now, Yitzchak gets married, and he marries Rivka, and then skip down to Pasuk 21. So in Pasuk 21 it says, fourth line from the top, Vayetar Yitzchak laHashem lenochach ishto. Yitzchak petitions God opposite his wife. Ki akorahi, for she was barren. Vayeyaser lo Hashem. Hashem responds to him. Vatahar Rivka ishto. She becomes pregnant. You'll notice the word Vatahar, she becomes pregnant. The root of the word Vatahar is har. It's a mountain. Because a woman who becomes pregnant, she becomes mountainous. That's where the word comes from. I didn't make it up. Listen, fellas, it's been going on for a few thousand years. You know, that wasn't my idea. So a woman becomes pregnant. Vatahar, she becomes mountain-like. That's what the word means. That's what the word means, and that's what happens. So this pasuk we have to spend a little time on because there are a few points here that simply don't seem to make sense. First of all, It says, Yitzchak davened to Hashem opposite his wife because she was barren. Now, if you wrote that, if you were writing the story, how would you have written the story? How would you have written that line?
Stood next to her.
Okay, but Yitzchak davened to Hashem for, let's say, instead of opposite his wife, let's say on account of his wife. Yitzchak davened to Hashem on account of his wife because she was barren. And don't you see a problem in that structure of that sentence? You see a problem in the structure of that sentence?
It shouldn't be reversed because she was barren.
Of course. I wonder that once Yitzchak got married to his wife Rivka. Rivka was barren, and therefore Yitzchak davened. I wouldn't say that Yitzchak davened to Hashem. Why? Almost as an afterthought because his wife was barren. I say Rivka was barren, and then Yitzchak davened. Go ahead.
The question is, why did they say, why did she daven?
She did daven. She davened as well. We're going to see that she davened. That's why the Torah says on the very next line, Vayei aser lo Hashem. Hashem responds to him, and Rashi points out he responded to him and not to her. She was davening. And Rashi's going to tell us why that also has to be understood. We'll try to understand that in a second. So it says, Rivka Yitzchak davened to Hashem, opposite of because she was barren. Instead of saying, well, there was a woman named Rivka who was barren and her husband, which would seem to make more sense. Okay, so so the answer is like this. There's a fundamental insight into davening. Let's say somebody would ask you, why do you daven? What's the purpose of davening? We all daven. Jews are always davening. Jews are always davening. 3 times a day we're davening. My wife says we can never go out to a meal at a restaurant because there's always a Ma'ariv lurking. You know, I always got to go to Mincha, Ma'ariv, which, by the way, works in our advantage. If you're ever out with people that you don't really like, I got to go down Ma'ariv. You come back 2 days later. What happened? It was a long borko. And you just disappear. There's always a davening. Davening never comes at a good time. In the morning, you're tired. At lunch, you're hungry. And at night, you're tired and hungry. Right? Davening always comes at a very inconvenient time, and we're always davening. Always davening. There's a guy in New York, in the diamonds trade in New York. So this non-Jew comes over to him. He says, I know why you Jews are good at business. He says, why? He says, I see you every day. About 10 of you stand on the side over there and you think about business for a few minutes. So so we certainly hope he's not. He's only half right. In America they have baseball parks. In America's a country, by the way. In America they have baseball parks where they actually have a minion under the stands after the 6th inning. Because they got in Baltimore and New York, they have a minion under the stands. They get together. I'm from Chicago, Wrigley Field. We can't have a minion because the Cubs, you're not allowed to daven for a miracle. But we hit a nerve over there, didn't we? Look at that. There you go. So Jews are always davening. You go to a wedding, there's a Ma'ariv at the wedding before you start the ceremony. There's a davening. You go out somewhere. Jews are always davening. So somebody would ask you, what's the reason? And davening is missed. We're so far away from understanding what davening really is. I heard Rabbi Victor Miller, Zichrono Livracha, was once, he said a story, there was a rabbi gets up in the shul, they have Mincha and they have Ma'ariv. In between Mincha and Ma'ariv, the Rav gave a little Musar drasha. So the Rav gets up to give a Musar, he says, okay, listen, to finish Mincha, he says, we have to think about Hashem and we have to incorporate Hashem into our life, we have to be more focused on Hashem. And a little old man in the back says, come on, forget about Hashem already. Let's start davening Ma'ariv. So, let's daven. Forget about Hashem and let's get to davening. So what is the purpose of davening? The answer is that we have it backwards. You ask your average person, what's davening for? What's prayer for? Most people will tell you prayer is to get stuff. You need something, you daven. And the Torah tells us exactly the opposite. The Torah tells us that Yitzchak davened. Why did Yitzchak daven? The davening is the subject of the story. That's the main theme of the story. Yitzchak davened. Why did he daven? It happens to be because his wife didn't have children. If it wouldn't have been that, it would have been some other reason. If it wouldn't have been that, it would have been some other reason. The theme of the story is the davening. And what that means is, now stay with this because this is fundamental in understanding davening. The Gemara says that God withholds. The Gemara asks, why did God withhold children from the patriarchs? Of all people, Avram, Yitzchak, and Rachel, Yaakov and Rachel didn't have children. He didn't have children. Why did God withhold children? The Gemara says that God desires the prayer of the righteous. HaKadosh Baruch Hu mis'ava l'tfilosim shel tzadikim. God desires the prayer of the righteous. So the first reaction is, well, I don't want to be so righteous. If that's what happens to righteous people, but what does that really mean? God desires the prayer of the righteous. Why do the righteous have children withheld? So the answer is that, let's say you want to go to medical school. This is an example. Say you want to go to medical school. In order to go to medical school, first of all, you have to do well in high school. You have to have good grades in high school. okay? So you had to work hard in high school to get good grades. If you worked hard enough in high school to get good grades, you know what we do? We allow you to take the medical entrance exams, which are even harder. What about the guy who was bumming around? No, you could go play ball. You don't have to you don't have to study you don't have to work even harder now to take the medical entrance exams. And then if you pass the medical entrance exams because you studied hard, now you get to be tortured through medical school for about 6 years, right? So what about me? I didn't get in. Great, I'm living the life. I play tennis and I have, I watch TV, and you're sitting in a back room and you're studying for medicine. You're studying for medical school. So if you take a look at it from that perspective, you're absolutely right. You're being tortured and I have a good time. But if you look at it from a different perspective, you have earned the privilege to go to a higher level. You've earned that privilege. How do you earn the privilege? You earn the privilege by working hard. So what happens is the ultimate good, obviously everybody knows the ultimate good is closest to God. God comes from the word good. God and good are closely related. The ultimate good is the closest to God. So if you want to get close to God, you know what you have to do? You have to work hard. And when you work hard, God says, you know what? You have earned the privilege to come even closer to me. You know how I'm going to do that? I'm going to withhold something that you want, which will cause you to daven. And because you daven, you will come even closer to me. But you have the opportunity, not you, because you've earned the privilege. You, by working hard up until this point, you're a tzaddik, you've earned the right to come even closer. You're not a tzaddik, you can't even come, you're not even in the game. I'm not even going to bother with you. That's one of the approaches. Now, I have to be very careful here, because it doesn't mean every time something is withheld and that all tzaddikim have something withheld. God in his wisdom knows when to withhold. The flip side of this is, what comes out of all this is that the purpose often, we don't always know each situation, but often the purpose of withholding something is for our benefit to draw us closer. But you see, the benefit, what comes out of this is if that's the purpose of davening, you could achieve it another way. If a person is doing well in an area, if a person has health, prosperity, children, good children, whatever he has, if you would pour out your heart in gratitude to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, if you pour out your heart in gratitude, I'll get you 1 second, if you pour out your heart in gratitude to Hashem, then Hashem doesn't have to withhold something to achieve the same purpose. The problem is we don't do that. The problem is that we don't do that. When we have something good, we're too busy thinking about how smart we were to have gotten this good. It was all because of me. We don't pour out our heart in gratitude. But in theoretical terms, if you would pour out your heart, the story of Rabbi Elimelech Führer. Rabbi Elimelech Führer is he runs what's it called, a medical referral organization. And Elimelech Führer was at the Kotel with a very wealthy man. And he was courting him in order to get a donation out of him. And they're at the Kotel, and they see a Jew standing there crying. He was crying there at the Kotel, crying his eyes out. So Rabbi Führer turns to the wealthy man. He says to him, look, there's a Jew who's obviously got some sort of sorrow. What's his sorrow? Probably one of two things. Either he's got some sort of health issue, or he's got a financial issue. I'll make you a deal. If it's a health issue, I'll help him. But if it's a financial issue, you have to help him. So the wealthy guy likes the challenge. This sounds good. A little novelty. So he says, okay. So Rabbi Führer walks over to him and he puts his arm around. He says, my dear friend, my name is Führer. I run a medical referral agency. If you, any of your family members, whatever you need, I get you the best doctors, get you even funding for it, so on and so forth. The guy says, no, Baruch Hashem, I'm healthy. My family's healthy. A little fetching here and there, but nothing serious. So he goes back to the guy. He says, okay, you're up. So he walks over to him, he puts his arm around his shoulder, says, just name it. Here's a blank check. Just how much do you need? I can give it down to whatever it is. Don't worry about it. I'll sign it right now. He says, no, Baruch Hashem, we're okay. We're not rich. We don't have a lot, but we have more or less what we need. So he first said, so why are you crying like that? The guy says, look, I have 12 children. Every time I had to marry off one of my children, you got to make the shidduch, and you got to set them up, and you got to hope it works out, and everything else. And every time we've had to marry off a child, I've come to the Kotel, and I've asked Hashem for help. And Baruch Hashem, it's worked out. Last night, we married off our 12th and final child. So I came tonight just to say thank you to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, everything he's given me. See, the idea of a Jew standing and crying in thanks, is a bit foreign to us. On the other hand, if a Jew could theoretically get there, that's what the Torah is telling you. The Torah is telling you, the whole point of the story is he davened. Why did he daven? He happened to daven because she was barren. That's how we're supposed to look at tefillah. Tefillah is not a means to achieve an end. Tefillah is an end in and of itself. The davening is an ends. The means to davening are all the various challenges, blessings, and ordeals of life. Those are the means to achieve the ends, which is the davening itself. A very difficult concept because we usually look at it the opposite way. That's not how we generally look at it. Yeah, what do you want to ask, Eli?
So could you say the opposite, that Hashem would give you stuff to try and keep you away?
There is certainly a concept. It's a good question. There's certainly a concept that a Russia, somebody who's not a very good person, will be rewarded in this world to keep him away from the world to come. His currency is this world currency. This is how he sees life and pleasure and purpose. And therefore God says, you know what, I'll give you a couple of companies and you could have that here because I don't want to see you in the world to come. There's also the concept of the nachash, the snake, that the curse of the snake is you're going to eat dirt. That's what the Torah says. You're going to eat dirt everywhere you go. Okay, whatever that means, you're going to eat dirt. Some say it means rodents that are in the dirt, whatever it is that the snake, whatever the blessing means. But the snake has his parnasa everywhere he goes. Snake has parnasa everywhere he goes. The snake has parnasa. I mean, a lot of people would be standing in line for that curse. Everywhere he goes, he's got what to eat. What's the problem? So the answer is there was a kid who was suicidal. True story. This kid was suicidal. He came to a Rav, a counselor. Said, what's the problem? He said that his father is very wealthy. His father is remarried, and the stepmother doesn't like him. She wants him out of the house. So the father said to him, "Here, take my credit card. Use it as much as you want for whatever you want. Just we can't have anything to do with each other." So the kid was broken by it. Why? Most teenagers I know would be happy. They'd much rather have the credit card than the father telling them what to do. Yeah, it's a choice. It's me or the credit card. I would never say that to my daughter. That's for sure. I would never say that. So it's me or the credit card. As long as the father's healthy and I know he's there when I need him. And I'm off on my own. What could be better than walking around with an unlimited piece of plastic? The kid was suicidal. Because my father has no interest in me. He's given me everything. He has no interest in me. That was the punishment to the snake. The punishment to the snake was God says, here, take it. Just go. Go. I don't want to hear from you. Just go. Did you ever do that with your kids ever? I'm sure you did at some point. Just take it and go. Just leave me alone. Just take it here. Take whatever you want. Just leave me alone. I don't want to see you. You're upset with the kid. I'd rather not see you than hear you hawking me. Here, take the money. Go. Do whatever you want with it. Just don't hawk me. That's the greatest demonstration of displeasure. Yes, it could happen. That could not only could happen, it did happen with the nachash. That's how they explain the curse of the nachash. God says, here, take it, go, and leave me alone. I don't want to hear from you. You have parnas everywhere you go. Don't talk to me. I don't want to hear your voice. That's exactly what it says by nachash. Okay? That's idea number one. Idea number two is a shocker in Rashi. Now take a look at this, because this is really a bit of a shocker. It's in the second column of Rashi. It's in the second column of Rashi. And this goes back to, your name is? Stephen. So Stephen asks, it sounds like only Yitzchak davened, right? Because of the Yetzer Lo Hashem. So take a look at Rashi. It's the second column, 5 lines from the top. If you find it, please show the person next to you. Vayetar lo, says Rashi, lo v'lo lo. God responded to him and not to her. Why? Now, get ready for this. She'ein dome tfilas tzaddik ben Rasha. You cannot compare the tefillah of a tzaddik, the son of a Rasha. In this context, it means Rivka. She's obviously not a son; she's a daughter. But he's telling you as a concept. Litfilas tzaddik ben tzaddik. You cannot compare the tefillah of a tzaddik ben Rasha to a tzaddik ben tzaddik, which Yitzchak was, because Avraham Avinu was his father. Lefichach, therefore, lo v'lo lo. Therefore, the Torah emphasizes that he responded to her, to him, and not her. Now, obviously, so one thing we get, she was davening. She was davening. Otherwise, Rashi would have said lo because he was the only one davening. So she was davening too. Yet who does the Kodesh Baruch Hu respond to? He responds to him and not her. Why? Because he can't compare the levels of tefillah. What's your gut reaction to that?
Doesn't seem fair.
Doesn't seem fair. Why not? Your name is?
Russell.
Russell. Why not?
Well, the one who's not a lot of already been people, it's not fair to be penalized.
Right. Not only it sounds like they're being penalized, you can make an argument that they're coming from much further away. Look what they overcame. She has a brother like Lavan, and a father like Besul, and she's that. I mean, why is this? And we know that Balei Tshuvas occupy a place that even Tzaddikim and Gemorim don't occupy. It hardly seems fair.
I don't think that's right. I think that the nature of the suffering is different. I think that a woman would suffer differently to a man because she gives birth, and I think that the nature of the suffering is different. That's why they are delineating between the two.
Okay, but I'm only going with
A
what.
woman's suffering versus a man's
Okay, but that could be, but I'm talking about what Rashi's talking about the tefillah aspect. He's not talking about the suffering aspect. You're right, but Rashi.
Suffering for a kid, but
But Rashi's not talking about the suffering. Rashi's only talking about the potency of tefillah in general. He's not. Rashi doesn't even limit it to giving birth. And by the way, gentlemen, I would just want to tell you a medrash which will make you happy. I don't know if you should tell your wives or not, but there is a medrash that says that as difficult as childbearing is, parnasa is twice as hard.
Write that down.
Yes, and I only suggest if you say it as a Dvar Torah at the table, say it after you've had dinner. All right, just say it after you've had dinner. I once said to my wife that I think pregnancy and childbirth is an attention-getting thing. I said it once. Yeah, I said it once. And there's a reason for it, because pregnancy, you pregnancy, you pregnancy and you give birth and it hurts a little bit. They claim that it hurts. Okay, so they what do you call it? So we'll say they're right. Okay, but you see the difference is that pregnancy, you give birth and you have a child, you're finished. Parnasa, you're never finished. Parnasa is 24 hours. Parnasa is a 24-hour job, 365 days a year. It's a never-ending job. So one is a physical pain, and one is just a pain, right? And that's the difference. That's what the Medrash says. Now, but Rashi's not focused on. Rashi's focused on the tefillah aspect of it. Rashi's focused on who's got a greater potency in tefillah. So let's try to answer this in two different ways. Why should it be? And I can make an argument that Rivka, is on her tefillah. Look where she came from. Look where he came from. He's got a father like Yitzchak. Okay, now let me ask you a question. Imagine you walk into a shul. And there are two men in shul. One of the guys is putting on his tefillah and his eyes are barely open. He's rapping. He doesn't know what he's rapping. Oh, no, 1 second. Put it on like that. He doesn't even know where he is. His eyes are barely open. He opens up his sitter and he's checking his, what do you call it? He's davening over there and he's talking to the guy next to him. Okay, there's another guy in shul who's pulling out his tefillah and he's like this. He's looking at his tefillah and he's like, then he takes the sitter and he's completely like a hungry man eating a frankfurter, and he's all over his sitter. Then I tell you, one of them is a Baal Tshuva, and one of them is a from birth. And you have to guess. If you guess correctly, you're going to bet now. You're going to make a wager. Which one would you say is the Baal Tshuva, and which one would you say is the from birth?
The intense guy's the Baal Tshuva.
The intense guy's the Baal Tshuva. All right. The guy. What do you call it? And show that he's a from birth.
What do we win?
Why? What do you win? Why is it? Why is it? Why is it that you know as well as I know, and everybody in this room agrees with you, that the one who looks at the what's that?
Every single day, you got comfortable with the situation.
That's right. You see, what happens is you get comfortable with the situation, you become complacent, you take it for granted. So if you have a tzaddik ben tzaddik, you can't blame him if at a certain point he became complacent. Jews in Russia who were practicing their Yiddishkeit under the noses of the communists. And they were davening in a cellar somewhere in Russia, where if you get caught, you go to Siberia or worse. All right? Jews in such a situation, I don't know what's worse than Siberia, maybe Brooklyn, but okay, well, you go to Siberia or worse. Okay, so they got the Jews in a cellar over there. If you walked into that cellar, what would you expect to see Jews in a cellar doing? Like this, telling jokes during davening? I don't think so. I think Jews in a cellar under those circumstances are putting everything they've got into it. Because in life, when you have to overcome adversity, you put more keiches into it, you put more energy into it. A Jew who is a Baal Tshuva, a Baal Tshuva who's got to overcome a Lavan and a Yaakov, ironically, you have a natural advantage. Your natural advantage is the adversity. So if you're going to do it already, you're going to do it right. A Jew that's the son of an Avram Avinu, a Jew that's been born in a frum home and raised in a frum community. So a Jew is what they call an FFB. You've ever heard the expression FFB? A frum from birth. Others say fractured from birth. Different opinions what it means. But at the end of the day, if you're a frum from birth, it becomes, okay, again, a davdi. I've been doing this my whole life. So ultimately, if you have two such people, I get to one say, if you have two such people, and they're both davening with intensity, who had to actually draw on greater resources to get himself to that point? Ironically, it's the from birth. Therefore, if Yitzchak and Rivka are davening, and they're davening with intensity, at that point you can't compare the two, because Yitzchak had to put more into his tefillah than Rivka did. Ironically, Yitzchak has to put more into his tefillah. You see, I'll get to you one second, Steve. The subject is actually a broader subject because you see, in life, just imagine it's Motzei Shabbos, and the good husband is approaching the sink to do the dishes for his wife. Okay, all right, we're into the realm of science fiction here, but you're gonna surprise your wife, and you're gonna go what do you call it? You're gonna surprise her and buy some flowers for Shabbos. And just as you get there, as you approach the sink, you hear your wife say, Chaim, can you do the dishes? What happened at that moment?
Feel frustrated.
Right? Why? What changed? What changed? You were going to do the dishes anyway. What changed? And at that point, forget it. Or you're walking out of the house, you can buy her flowers for Shabbos, and your wife says to you, do you mind picking up some flowers for Shabbos? Yeah, I do mind, as a matter of fact. Well, you were about to do it. What happened? What changed? What changed is there's a difference in life between when you feel you have to do something when you're a volunteer. You walk into any hospital, you look at the nurses are dragging their feet. You look at the candy stripers, or you look at the volunteers in the hospital, clean out bedpans. They're hey, what else can I do? They're all enthusiastic because you have to do it and you're a volunteer. When you're a volunteer, you feel a natural sense of, I'm a national hero over here. You feel good about yourself. A Baal Tshuva, in his heart of hearts, a Baal Tshuva really feels, I don't have to be doing this. Nobody could blame me if I only found out about this when I was 26. God's not going to blame me if I wouldn't be doing this. I'm a volunteer. You know when I know a guy is no longer a Baal Tshuva, a guy is now considered officially converted into an FFB from Baal Tshuva? You know how I know? He falls asleep in Shir. When he falls asleep in Shir, he yawns during davening. He's made it. He's one of us now. Now he's from. Right? That's the telltale sign. Because now you're at the point of no return. That means you've come to terms with the fact that I really have no choice. Or once you have no choice, you're finished. Your wife says to you, do the dishes. Up until now, I was a volunteer. I was going to surprise her, a national hero. I was even going to use soap. And my wife is and now she's telling me to do it. At that point, I don't want to do it because now I have to do it. That's what happens with davening, and that's what happens with all areas of mitzvahs. Somebody had a question. Yeah, go ahead.
So, the same could be applied to first and second generation wealth, because the second generation wealth that doesn't actually have to work hard versus the
That's right.
Versus the
That's right.
self-made man as a second generation.
That's right.
Appreciates it and operates differently to the.
That's 100% correct. I had a man say that to me once. I had a friend of my father's once said to me, he says, the reason you guys, he was talking to me and his son, he says, the reason you guys treat money the way you do is because you never had to work for it. Yeah, which is true, which may be true of wives and husbands as well. My wife and I agree. I told the guys that we agree that we have to buy necessities. We agree that we shouldn't buy luxuries. We only have a disagreement on what fits what category. So things like milk, cheese, and eggs, she feels are necessities. And I feel they're luxuries. Well, yeah, if you would work for it, you'd see. One of the kids is sitting there cracking eggs, and isn't it cute? No, it's not cute at all. As a matter of fact, work for it, and you'll see it's not cute. You're absolutely right. The more you work, but you've had to overcome adversity. And when you overcome adversity, you appreciate it as a great appreciation.
Different responsibility.
Of course. Okay, now there's another idea here. And why the two tefillahs are not the same. Pay attention carefully. Very interesting idea. The Gemara says that Moshe Rabbeinu asked God a question. The Gemara in Bracha says he asked God, why is it that the tzaddikim suffer, the righteous suffer, and the wicked prosper? It doesn't bother you in life when you see a good guy who's suffering, and you see a no goodnik who's doing well. Moshe Rabbeinu, such a good question. Moshe Rabbeinu asked Hashem that question. So Hashem said to Moshe Rabbeinu, give a very peculiar answer. The Gemara says Hashem said, a tzaddik who is prospering is a tzaddik, the son of a tzaddik. A tzaddik who's suffering is a tzaddik, the son of a rasha. A rasha who's prospering, an evil man who's prospering, is the evil man, the son of a tzaddik. And an evil man who's suffering is an evil man, the son of an evil man. That was the answer God gave to Moshe Rabbeinu. But there's a very fundamental problem here that runs through all four of those answers, which is what?
Why does one go to the other?
What's one thing got to do? What's it got to do with your parents? Who cares what your father was? You're a tzaddik, the son of a tzaddik, so you prosper in this world and the next. Why should you? Yeah, my father did his thing. I'm doing my thing. To the contrary, if I'm a tzaddik, the son of a rasha, I should prosper. Look what I've overcome. This guy, he had to put on a platter for. Okay? So, and the same thing when it comes to an evil person. So the Vilna Gaon says that the Gemara is talking at that point about reincarnation. The Gemara, when it talks about a tzaddik ben tzaddik, it doesn't mean your biological father. A tzaddik ben tzaddik means you were a tzaddik in a previous life, you came back down and you're a tzaddik in this life. So a tzaddik, the son of a tzaddik, prospers because you're doing well over here, you did well previously, there's no reason to make you suffer. A tzaddik, the son of a Rasha, means in a previous life you were a Rasha. You came back down and you got it right the second time around. Okay, so you need a rectification of some sort. The rectification is that you will suffer in this world so you have your portion in the world to come. The Rasha, the son of the tzaddik, he was a tzaddik in a previous life, and he came back into this world and he got it wrong. He became a Rasha in this world. Okay, so you'll prosper in this world because you got nothing left for you there because you messed up. You prosper because you were a tzaddik. You got to be rewarded for your previous incarnation as a tzaddik. In a Rasha, the son of Rasha, you were no good then, you're no good now, you got nothing left in the world to come, and you're not getting anything in this world either. So based on that, what comes out is when it says you cannot compare the tefillah of a tzaddik ben tzaddik to the tefillah of a tzaddik ben Rasha, we're talking about the person himself and his previous incarnation. A tzaddik, the son of a tzaddik, means that if you were good in the previous world, you're good in this world, so then your tefillah, you have the added potency of your previous existence that gives you the higher caliber of your tefillah in this world. Okay, now, yeah. That's a good question. Sometimes, it's a very good question. Sometimes a person could be very, very good, and one time in shul, and he's a tzaddik, he does tzedakah, chesed, Torah, everything under the sun. One time in shul, you happen to mention something to a friend of yours during davening, you missed one Amenia Heshmei Rabbah. You could have to come back and live 70 years just to make up that Amenia Heshmei Rabbah. That's one of the reasons, by the way, why there is a tradition. Again, I have to be very careful about this because we don't know. We don't know who, what, or where. We only know conceptually. You can never point to one. Do you know that the Kabbalists say that a person who is immoral could be brought back as a dog? Being brought back as an animal is rough.
Who was what? Immoral.
Immoral. He could be brought back as a dog. And when a person is brought reincarnated as an animal, the frustration is that they know they were one human. They have the consciousness of knowing they were humans. They can't express themselves as human beings. Imagine that. Imagine that. You're sitting under the table and you'd like to contribute to the conversation. All that comes out is a bark. Right? You know, somebody says, I disagree with that completely, but that's not what comes out. What comes out is a bark. That's why one of the roughest lines I ever heard in any medrash, the medrash says a man could live, accumulate money, and leave it all. Now, if it said leave it all for his children, okay, many people don't mind. He could leave it all for his wife's next husband. How'd you like that? You know, Mr. Heinz. Mr. Heinz's wife married John Kerry. Yeah, just imagine Mr. Heinz, the ketchup king, right? If somebody would have told him while he's making all that money on ketchup that one day your money's going to pay for his hairdo, right? Your money's going to be paying for John Kerry's hairdo. You know, Mr. Heinz would have eaten mustard. That's what he would have done. He would have gotten out of the ketchup. That's what you live for, so that this clown can spend your money? That's what you lived the whole life for? So just imagine you're sitting at the table, you're a dog, and you're listening to your wife and her new husband, and you're barking.
Bite him.
I would say, I'm going straight, you're just going to bite your wife, bite him as hard as you can, right? So you have to be very careful when you get, you have to be very careful that when you get into these subjects, you don't look at a dog, when nobody's looking, you look around, you say to the dog, come on, tell me what you did. Really, we don't know any given, my wife was convinced that her dog, when I met her, they had a dog, but she was convinced her dog was Jewish. Because Friday night, we come in from shul, the dog would start barking madly and try to get us into the dining room to make kiddush. So I had to explain to my wife, dogs do not have neshamas and so on and so forth, so forget about it. But at the end of the day, you have to be very careful. We don't know any individual. We do know conceptually, that's why I say conceptually, that a child who is mentally challenged, a child who is a Down syndrome or something like that, there is a tradition that they have a very lofty neshama. I'll tell you why this works. That means they may have been very big tzaddikim in a previous life. They only missed, let's say, a couple of the mains in Amenia Heshmei Rabbahs. So they're brought back in a state where they don't have the responsibility to do other mitzvahs. They don't have to learn Torah because they did that all. all they have to do, and these children are sometimes trainable to a certain point, where all they do is have to be trained till they're able to answer a Ben Yeheshmei Rabbah. And they've committed. So a tzaddik could be brought back. How those things work is already beyond us. But a tzaddik could be brought back. That's what the commentaries say. Okay. Now here we get. We're not going to be able to get too far into this today, but it says like this: Vayimlu yamel aledes. On top of page 26, Rivka is pregnant, and it's time for her to give birth. V'nei somim bevitna. She has twins. Vayetze arishon admoni. The first one comes out red. Kulo kaderes se'ar. He's all hairy. Vayikru shemo Esau. Okay, and they called him Esau. Rashi says everybody who saw him called him Esau. Now, Esau has a literal meaning, and Esau has a symbolic meaning for why Esau is the arch nemesis of the Jewish people through history. The word Esau comes from the word oseh, which is to do. Esau means he's done. A baby comes out fully hairy like an adult. So you go, well, he's completed. He's full. He's complete. He's a done deal. That's what Esau means on the literal level. On the symbolic level, Esau shows us it's the arch nemesis of a Jew at any level all through history. Both on the physical level, we've suffered at the hands of Esau, but it's on a developmental level. A Jew never is allowed to get to the point where he feels, I'm done. I'm done, my job's complete, my task, I am the complete human being, I've completed myself spiritually, and I have no more to grow. A Jew has to always be in a state where he's growing. Esau represents he's done, he's complete, there's no more work to do. That's our biggest allergy. Our biggest allergy is that we're allergic to that attitude. We cannot ever get to the attitude of we are done, we are complete. That's the most dangerous thing. We're never done, we're never complete, and we must never become allergic to that attitude. I heard about a woman, by the way. I was going through a period of allergies once. I kept getting allergies. Doctor, I kept going, doctor, tried this medication, that medication. Turned out I found out, we traced I was allergic to work. But he couldn't do anything about that. So I asked him for a big green pill with Ben Franklin's picture on it, but he said he couldn't give me that. So we was trying to figure it out, and I asked him at one point, just kind of tongue-in-cheek, I said, what happens if somebody becomes allergic to water? I was allergic to everything. Everything was, I said, what if somebody's allergic to water? So he said to me, well, they're in trouble. He said it kind of also, he said it just kind of, okay. 2 years later, 3 years later, there was a woman in England who gave birth, and because of the birth process, she developed a very rare allergy to water. There were like, 27 cases on record. And she couldn't shower, she couldn't bathe, she couldn't touch her child because he said sweat, she couldn't do anything. Once a week she was able to take a little bit of water and wash herself off, and obviously the question is, how did she exist? She's allergic to water, you can't drink water either. Don't ask me why, I'm just telling you what the newspaper reported. The only thing she could drink was Diet RC. I have no idea why, but next time you drink Diet RC, just realize you're drinking pure chemical juice, right? Because there's obviously no water in it. So I don't know what they put in it, but there can't be water. That was how she said, my life is not a life. And she was living in England, by the way, which is a pretty bad place to be allergic to water. It's not like she was in Arizona. She was living in England. And, I thought to myself, there are certain things in life you better not get allergic to. Don't get allergic to it. Torah is called water. Don't get allergic to Torah. The growth, a Torah Jew is connected to Torah, is connected to growth. And that's something that Esau is the opposite. Esau says, I'm done. I can do what I want now. And to the contrary, our attitude is that we always have to grow. Okay, we'll continue tomorrow. I think we